Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the channel. This was a request from someone in the comments who asked for a basic positioning guide in AFK Journey, and that is what I want to do today. So we're going to try and cover as many different types of positioning and what we can do with them. I'm going to cover lots of different game modes. We're going to look at Dream Realm positioning. We're going to go and look at PvP positioning, etc. But I wanted to start off with the basics. I'm going to guide you through everything that I know about positioning in AFK Journey. Before we get into it, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has subscribed so far. I'm nearly at 1,000 subscribers, so if you like this guide and you enjoy what I've done here, I'd really appreciate it if you felt like subscribing. It would really mean the world to me, so thank you to everyone that has done so far. Let's jump into it. So let's start off with the basic positioning is that we put tanks in the front. Now, in general, there are two types of tanks positioning styles that we use in this game. We either use a solo tank, and Iron Wall spell is perfect for that because it generates a big defensive bonus for your tank in front. And when you get Iron Wall spell to level 2, the buff will be transferred to another target once this hero is defeated. So you can actually run a double tank composition once you get level 10 Iron Wall spell. The other type of positioning that we can run with tanks is a 2-tank positioning. So in this case, and you can have a look at where the enemy is focusing by doing this. So the enemy is doing that. We can split our focus by just making sure that we have our 2 tanks drawing focus across the board. If we do this, you can have a look. This is probably the best way to split our focus, right? So we'll get one Brutus going on to the enemy Brutus. We'll get everybody else focusing my Thorin. That is a good way to do it. And you can always go and check who's targeting what by using this little UI indicator over here. And that's what we're using just to see where the focus is going. So in this case, we can see that 4 people are going to focus Thorin. Sorry, no, 3 people are going to focus Thorin. 2 people are going to focus Brutus. That is about as good as we can get. Though what we will say is actually it will end up being 4, because even though it says that Vala is focusing Brutus, you can see that Vala's targeting the furthest enemy away from her at the moment. That's not how I'm going to set up this positioning, but that's just what I want to talk to you about when it comes to frontline positioning. Then in general, what you want to do is I usually like to drop my support somewhere behind my tank. Now, if I'm not running Thorin, I would actually usually drop something like Smokey and Mickey right behind my tank. But because I am running Thorin, I usually end up putting a DPS behind the tank because you get healing for Thorin based on the DPS output of the person that you put behind them when there's Mythic Plus. So DPS just wants to kind of go behind. Now, in general with DPS, you need to have a look who they're going to focus. So I can't get anybody to focus anything different other than the Kruger in the front line just based on where the enemy is. But you do always want to have a look at where you can kind of adjust positioning of your DPS to make sure they're focusing the target that you want. In this case, they're all going to focus the frontmost target, which is going to be the Kruger. DPS positioning really only matters for a couple of reasons. Your primary DPS positioning is like which you want your target you want your DPS to focus. Your second DPS positioning is kind of like how to protect your DPS against the certain types of enemies that you're going up against. We will talk about that in a bit more in future. Particularly in this case, we can see that there is a Marily, and we can also see there's a Shakir. I'm going to sneeze 1 second. There's a Marily and a Shakir. So in my case, it will make sense for me to just kind of put Odie over to the side, because I don't want everybody to get caught in a Shakir hit. I don't want everyone to get caught in a Marily ultimate. I'm going to put Smokey and Mickey here. I'm not expecting too many people to target Odie over here, because Smokey and Mickey is... and Smokey and Mickey won't actually reach Odie until he gets his 3rd cast of his ultimate. Now, you might say, oh, but Excoundrel, of course, Vala is targeting Smokey and Mickey. Well, that's what I'm doing with my Brutus. So when there is an enemy Vala on the enemy team, you always want to make sure the Vala does not get immediate focus onto one of your most important targets. And in my case, that's Smokey and Mickey. The Vala will target Brutus. Now, obviously, after Brutus is dead, she's probably going to focus Smokey and Mickey, but that's okay. I might put Smokey and Mickey actually behind the Vala actually to compensate for that. But this, to me, feels like a good set of positioning for this round. Brutus will absorb the first hits from the Vala, and then we are then just looking to get our ultimates down. Now, I think what might even be more useful than running Smokey and Mickey on this level, just depends, I'll have to see, is maybe running the Rowan comp. But we'll see. Let's see how we go. So we have Brutus. He's taunted everybody off. That means Smokey and Mickey is not dead for the time being. Vala is stuck on Brutus, which is great. Yeah, we're gonna do great here. My Smokey and Mickey's at the time. We get the Cessia ult cast. Boom. That was built from positioning. When I did that with another position, we lost that. So that was built from positioning. We're going to go into AFK stage 2 here and have a look. We've got a similar problem. There is a Vala here. I could get the enemy Vala to just focus my Vala, and given that the and you know what, I've got Temezia, so what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to try and get the enemy Vala to focus Temezia, or actually even better, maybe focus my Lucius. So this is the comp that I'm setting up here with and similar kind of positioning. When you've got a Rowan, you want to make sure that the Rowan's going to be in a spot where he'll be able to give everybody energy, so I like to put him smack bang in the middle most of the time. And again, we're looking at who's focusing whom. It is going to be Antandra taking most of the heat to begin with, and then we have Lucius over here pulling the Vala away. When we have a Vala, you can have a look at who she can target, but she's only really going to target the enemy that's furthest away, which is going to be the Cessia in this case. So wherever you put Vala on the field, it doesn't matter, she's going to target the same person. We should be able to get through this AFK stage relatively nicely. So we're going to jump in, we're going to get the kill. My Vala is now kind of popped off. These second AFK stages are always a lot easier, by the way, than the first one. And that there was a very easy kill of AFK stage 900. Boom, we love to see it. We can go into the next one and have a look here. So this is kind of like how I generally set up my standard positioning. You can have a look at who the enemy's targeting. The enemy all targets my Thoran. So regardless, I could split this up. There is a way that we could split this up. So we could put Thoran here, Antandra here, and do this. So we have a split DPS focus. But because we're running Iron Wall, and because I don't want my Antandra to die straight away, because she's only Legendary Plus. This is, or even just Legend. Yeah, she's only Legendary Plus, so I don't want my Antandra to just straight up die. This is the best set of positioning that I can hope for. Odie is my most protected DPS, so I want Odie to be right in the back line. And I want my Cessia to be granting lifesteal to my Thoran. So, again, this is really simple. Again, you need to be aware of where Smokey and Mirky's going to be. I'm going to put him as far forward as physically possible, because the problem with Smokey and Mirky is that he's very range dependent. So if Smokey and Mirky gets out of range of your tanks, won't actually provide any healing whatsoever. But here you go. As you can see, healing starts off now, but we've had enough time, very easily able to clear out this AFK stage. So hopefully that teaches you a little bit about the basics of targeting and tank positioning. I really love Iron Wall spell for this particular reason. If you have a really high level tank, Iron Wall spell works really well. There is another type of tanking that we can do. So let's say I'm not going to run, let's say we don't run Thoran, so we don't have like a super strong tank. And in this case, you can see the Wolves. I can't remember what the Wolves do. Is it this one that jumps to the back line? Yeah, so this one jumps to the back line. Not going to target anyway about it, but so let's say we're running this particular setup, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run Confining Spell to deal with the back line. So Confining Spell generally locks up the back line. I'm going to draw aggro between my two tanks here. Doesn't really matter where I position the rest of the DPS. I just want to keep them in a group, so it makes it harder for the Wolf to single out anyone in particular. And let's say I'm not running Thoran, and I'm not going to run the Iron Wall spell. I'll do it this way. And this is just as effective. So if you don't have a super strong single tank, a way to approach this is to split your tanks and split the DPS focus on those tanks in the front line, which is generally the way to go about it. There is another way, especially with Brutus. So there is another way that you can sometimes employ. So I'll show you another option that you've got here. Another option with Brutus specifically is to block your Antandra behind Brutus. So let's say you don't want your Antandra to take the heat straight away. You want to take advantage of Brutus's invulnerability. In this case, they've got two mythic backliners, so I'm going to keep the Confining Spell on. So let's say you want to take advantage of Brutus's invulnerability. We want him to tank everybody first. You just lock Antandra up behind him. So Antandra will cast, and she will jump into the fight after Brutus. And that means Brutus will buy her some time. It'll buy everybody else some time to get their energy generation up, which has happened here. And we should get Cessia casting now, which means that we will be able to clean up the rest of this stage. This is a very basic way of approaching kind of using stuttering tanking. So putting one of your tanks behind the other so that it walks into the battle afterwards and then essentially draws the aggro once that first tank has died. So essentially you're stuttering the aggro, and it works very well if you're running Brutus, because Brutus has that moment of invulnerability. In this case, they're all mythic, so I'm going to go back to going to my Iron Wall spell here, and thinking about just putting Antandra just something like just next to them behind here like this. So I really like Iron Wall. Iron Wall It gets ranked quite lowly on some tier lists, but I just think Iron Ball is so good if you have like a very strong single tank. In this case, my Antandra, we got knocked back. Sometimes you have to be a little bit aware of that. For instance, Lucius will knock your front line back. I probably would have approached this slightly differently if I was thinking about that. But either way, Antandra walked in. So when my Thorin got knocked back, my Antandra walked in and took the aggro, and it meant that the rest of the team just didn't start focusing my Cessia, for instance. So that's why I put Antandra just to the side, because my Thorin, when he gets knocked back, they'll then start to focus Cessia if he gets knocked behind the Cessia, and then I just want my Antandra to take the aggro. And so that's hopefully a bit of supporting chat about kind of focusing. And what I'm going to do now is show you a little bit about split focusing. So in this case, right, I know that it's going to be pointless focusing down the Brutus. So I want my DPS to go for Lumont over here, even though Lumont's quite tanky. I don't want my DPS to get stuck on Brutus for ages, because it's not going to make any really that much of a difference, because he's going to be more annoying to deal with. So I'd rather kill off Brutus. I'd rather kill off this guy first. And what I want to do is pull the Brutus away from my comp. So we're going to focus Lamont. We're going to use Antandra to pull the Brutus away from this comp, and that is how we're going to focus this one down. Though I say that, I slightly messed up the positioning. So what I'm actually going to do is retry. I forgot. So that's something else. It's a good lesson. Even though it says who the enemy's focusing, so in this case, yeah, sorry, I could have seen that. The enemy actually will focus Thorin because he's closer. So in this case, I've now got Smokey, Mickey, and Brutus focusing my Antandra. I just didn't actually look. So you can see Antandra is just stopping Brutus from doing anything here. That means we get rid of the Lamont. Now we're going to focus Brutus because he's the next closest target. Because I've got Odie's Execute, it actually stops Brutus getting his invulnerability. But obviously not everyone's going to have that, so I just wanted to show you what it would be like without it. Lamont was more easily focused and more easily killed, so then we deal with Brutus afterwards. So hopefully that helps you a little bit when it comes to DPS focusing, split target tanking, and that kind of approach. I did quite a few stages. I probably could like let my team just go now and kill a load of AFK stages. The next thing we're going to show you is going to be more important for PvP. So I actually got knocked out. Oh, actually, I'm in champion still. That's great. So when it comes to PvP positioning, you pretty much have to... This enemy is showing exactly how it kind of gets done. But essentially, your entire PvP positioning is about how you deal with an enemy Vala. So this guy's running basically a Vala comp, right? So you can see it here. It's all about the Vala. What we're going to do is we are going to stop the enemy Vala from getting an easy kill on something. So we're going to put Igor on the back line here. They have put Brutus on the back line for basically the same reason, but we're going to put Igor on the back line because it's going to do a very similar thing for us. When you're in PvP, you're always going to, likely as you climb in PvP, you're always going to have to deal with this thing of Vala positioning. So you'll find that every high-level PvP comp is positioned something like this to stop the enemy Vala from basically getting a one-shot on your backline target. In this case, this guy's got a Supreme Plus Vala, whereas I've only got a Mythic Vala. I have to run Igor at his very basic level here, which is okay. But this guy's also running Antandra and Brutus for a similar reason. He's got Antandra at Mythic, he's got Brutus at Mythic as well, so he's got some very strong units here. Very grouped up, which should help my Cessia. So my Igor's not dead, which is great. And that means that his Vala hasn't got the automatic kill. So we got a really, really nice Cessia ult there. And yeah, Igor is a great answer to dealing with Vala. I could really do with some more Igor copies, if I'm honest with you. That'd be super nice. So when it comes to PvP, that is kind of the way that you need to position. We'll see if we can deal with this guy. So yeah, similar thing here. He's put a Lucius on the back line, whereas I've just got my Igor. I think this is perfectly fine. So we're just going Confining Shard versus Confining Shard in this case. We've got a very strong Thorin on the front line. There goes my ult. So it's Igor versus Igor in this case. We've got my Cessia ulting first, which is great. Their Cessia actually got locked up. My Igor's not dying, even though he's not a very high level. He's not dying, which is great. He's like the ultimate anti-Vala. He's the ultimate anti-Vala reset unit. So that's why we're running Igor in this case. You can run Igor practically in any Graveborn PvP comp. But because my highest level is Cessia, it just makes sense to run Cessia in this comp. And that is essentially how you deal with Vala positioning and how you deal with Assassin positioning. You just want to put something on the back line that you know is going to absorb hits from that and make it easier for you. I'm going to keep going with this, actually. Do this. So again, there is... So in this case, he's not actually running Valor at all. What he's running is... I'm trying to make it so that... Yeah. He's not actually running Valor at all. He's running Rainier, but I can see that getting rid of my Igor is actually... I don't care, because the Igor's... There's no Valor to worry about here, so I really don't worry about Igor getting targeted. So we're going to just make Igor get focused. It is what it is. Hopefully my Valor pops off here, which would be really nice. There we go. There goes my Cessia ult, which is good. My Valor's now popped off. So that's just dealing with Rainier positioning. Just making sure that you're looking at the UI will help you loads in these situations. It will tell you who's getting targeted. And this is just again another way of dealing with PvP positioning. So we're going to go again. Go against Bloodweaver. So this is a slightly harder map. So you can see here. You can see what I've done here in this case. I've actually got Thorin targeted, which is another way. Like I know. So for instance, I know that Lucius is not going to do a lot of damage, so I don't really care. And Cessia is not going to immediately attack me. So this is kind of, I'm happy with this positioning here because his Vala is going to get stuck on my Thorin. So it's a similar thing. Don't even need Igor in this one. I'm actually going to run Florabelle. I really love Florabelle. She is, I think, really awesome. Stun there, Cessia. Here comes my Florabelle now. It knocks everybody up. Florabelle gets... CC is massive in PvP, so if you can run Florabelle in comps, it's very strong. Boom. And that worked out really well, as you can see. A relatively easy win for us, even though we did have a slightly higher power level, of course. So hopefully that teaches you a lot about positioning in PvP. It is very much just kind of playing around how they're threatening your backline. Generally in PvP, people run a lot of assassins. I'm going to do one more because we're so close to our rewards. Let's see if we can take on someone slightly harder than us. We'll have to see. So this guy's got a Valor. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Igor on the backline again. He's running Florabelle. So obviously Florabelle, pretty strong. Igor's going to be the focus here. But let's see if we can kill his Valor before his Valor kills my Igor. So here we go. We're going to get an ult off maybe. That's nice. Cessia ult. Can I get Cessia ult? Can I get Cessia ult? No, not yet. Cessia ult. Yes! See, it's all won through Valor positioning. This guy is much harder than me, but it was all won through Valor positioning and just playing around the enemy Valor. This is why Valor is considered so high tier in PvP. Because if you can play Valor and play around Valor, she becomes an absolute monster. So I beat someone that had like 50k power higher than me because we played around Valor positioning and we just used Igor as a complete bait. Igor is the ultimate anti-Valor bait, and it's just about making sure the enemy Valor can't get a reset before your Valor can, which is often kind of what happens in PvP. The last thing that's worth noting is high and low walls. Now, in this particular challenge, you're going to notice that I've got a high wall to deal with. And high walls mean you can't move through them, and ranged characters also can't shoot through them. So that is worth noting. I have a Gaia shield here, which is obviously pretty good. So what I'm going to do is do this. Just put Smokey and Mirky somewhere in the middle. So what this means is that my Odie cannot shoot anything on the left-hand side, and my Cessia cannot shoot anything on the right-hand side without moving into line of sight. So when you've got these high walls, you just have to be aware that your ranged characters cannot shoot over them. So you have to prepare accordingly. So for this case, I'm splitting my tanking. I've got Antandra over here on this one. I've got Thorin over here on this one. And I've got the ranged DPS split across the two sides. There is another way I could doing this. If I was having particular trouble with the right-hand side because it's a mythic, I could drop Cessia over on this side and then just kind of like have Antandra to solo tank over on that side. That might even be a better option because it means we'll burn through stuff on this right-hand side quickly. But you do have to remember that if your ranged heroes are blocking a tile Thorin will have to walk all the way round to get here. He cannot walk through back this way. And if Antandra dies, these guys will just walk straight through and kill my backline. So that's something that's to be aware of. I don't think I'm going to run into the problem on this map, but it is just something that we should be aware of when doing this kind of thing. In this case, I'm going to put Antandra here because she's going to get the Iron Wall buff. I'm already giving Thorin a buff on this side. So Antandra's going to take the Iron Wall buff because that means that she'll just be super tanky and shouldn't die. And then my ranged units should kind of turn around and start doing the business. You can see here. So actually, Odie was out of range, out of line of sight of this guy over on the right-hand side. So now they're just moving through over here. Sorry, my son just dropped in. So you saw there, they just saw there, obviously, there was a high wall in that situation blocking. Sometimes you get short walls. Short walls at ranged. So here's a good one to showcase what it's like with a short wall. So I'm going to put Odie there. This is another case where I think Iron Wall works really well. So there's only one gap here, so the enemy can't get past the first tank. So I'm going to place Iron Wall Thorin in front with Cessia to provide him some support. But you'll notice that Odie can shoot over the wall here. The enemies just can't get through. They'll knock back, but Antandra comes through. We've got a double knockback there, which is really annoying. Didn't expect that to be the case, but nonetheless, still fine. Enough for Cessia to cast her ultimate, and we'll be perfectly fine getting through this. The story levels are generally quite easy. I have found I've very rarely struggled to push past a story level that is of equivalent level in AFK stages, but that's just another example of the short and high walls. So that's pretty simple in terms of positioning. You'll find the most short walls that you'll encounter on a regular basis tend to be on the PvP. So generally, we don't have high walls in PvP. We just have short walls or low walls in Arena, and that just tends to be manipulating where your units move around. One of the things that I've noticed on, and maybe someone else can actually answer this for me, so if you've made it this far in the video, maybe someone can answer this for me. Why on earth is it on some maps when I think that I've set the formation and I come back to it, so I go back and look at the formation, so that done this, map that, why has my map 1 just suddenly changed? I don't really understand. So I changed that formation, and then my map 1 formation has just suddenly completely changed. I don't get it. And like here, my formation is all over the place despite setting it up in the way that I thought I was going to set it up. This is generally, if you can get this formation to work, this is going to work for you on most levels. So this is what I like to do. This is kind of like my defensive formation, just because it's Anti-Vala. You generally want an Anti-Vala defensive formation if you can. And because I've got high ascendancy on Thorin and Cessia, I actually now have a mythic Igor. I pulled an Igor whilst I was filming this video, which is great. I now have mythic Igor. This is a pretty strong team in general. Got to wait 9-6. This is also one of the most annoying things about this game. You have to wait. But again, you'll notice that these short walls, the low walls, exist mostly in PvP, and it's just there to manipulate the movement of melee characters. But that is practically everything. Hopefully, this was like a good one-shop stop guide on basic positioning. I'll put timestamps in the description below for everyone. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon.